everybody that's joined us. If you're not okay with it, just let us know. Or maybe
just
log
drop
off.
off. No,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that.
I mean, it is what it is. If you don't want to be
Yeah.
recorded, then just don't. Either you participate or you just drop off
Yeah,
and listen to the
actually,
recording later.
the thing is, maybe only their names will be on it anyway. So unless they turn their camera on or say something, but I guess everyone seems okay with it. So yeah, so I've done my introduction. So unfortunately, in this recording, so I'll just quickly say welcome to Open Tech Convo. So we're gonna get started with introducing the panelist. So Ish. Please go ahead.
Yeah, evening or morning, everyone. I'm Jatta. I am in cybersecurity, but as a cloud security engineer for one of the banks in the UK. So I've been in the field for a little over seven years now, just basically in cybersecurity, defense, protection, that kind of thing, helping my organization protect against the emerging threats that are ransomware, malware, cyber defenses. So that's kind of like my field. Recently, I've moved into cloud security to help the organization progress in Azure, in GCP, and in AWS, effectively looking at how do we effectively control our people in there, our code in there, and ensuring that we are not exposing ourselves to risk in cloud. So that's me. My background is that networking and security. That's what my background is. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. I do apologize. I think my lighting is a bit worse. You're just seeing a shadow. So don't know how it's coming across your side. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you.
All right. I guess I go now, Siri, or
yes.
All right. Cool. All right, everyone. Welcome. My name is Malik Khan. I'm the founder of PointClick. PointClick is a cloud services company. So we've been in the business for about 14 years now, based in the US with offices in Spain, Malaga, in India, and in Gambia for the past almost 3 years now. So what our main business is, we manage infrastructure in Azure mainly. We are a Microsoft Go partner in their cloud platform. That's on Azure and the 365 platform. We also do manage customers that are running on AWS. GCP, not so much. We also do run our own private cloud in 5 data centers within the US, 2 in North Carolina, 1 in Raleigh, 1 in Durham, 1 in San Francisco, 1 in San Jose, and in Ashburn, Virginia. So, here to have a conversation about cloud, the benefits of it. Even though we run, private data centers, I think it's wise for companies just to leverage some sort of a hybrid model. So then we'll talk about some of that later on. So I'll pass it on to Pierre.
Yeah, no, thanks. Hi, everyone. Pierre Davis. Currently reside in San Francisco. Been here since 2007, and spent the last about 15 years or so in the technology space. Part of my career kind of started within service management, so helping companies, design policies and procedures to help with service delivery to their end users or their customers. And then also spend a good chunk of time in the cloud space. So anything from defining a cloud strategy all the way to running, cloud operations and anything in between. So primarily focused on, I have a portfolio of fintech clients, banking, payments out here in the West Coast that I focus on and basically kind of help them as they journey into the cloud and journey within the cloud as well. So excited to be part of the conversation and yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Pierre. So I guess what we'll do is we'll open the floor now for the Q&A. For anyone in the participants and in the participant list that wants to ask any questions based around the topic of cloud, and how we can leverage cloud. If at all the speakers or the panelists also want to ask questions, feel free. Or if you want to share something, feel free to also just jump in and share. It's pretty open, as you know. So if there are no questions, I will ask a question. So let's see if the participants have anything to say, or even just want to introduce themselves. You feel free to do that. Okay. If there are no questions,
I'll ask a question. I mean, just to kind of start the conversation, maybe I'll start with Pierre. We're talking about leveraging cloud for performance. How do you see organizations today benefiting from cloud? We're talking about mature companies, but then how can maybe some of the smaller companies and maybe just somebody starting their company, a startup, like what kind of strategies can they think about as they're thinking about putting together their systems from your experience and from your point of view?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I think for most organizations, I think it's important to understand why you want to go into the cloud, right? I think a lot of people get excited and they think, oh yeah, everybody's going into the cloud, we must go into the cloud as well. It's not a one size fits all, right? I think that there are benefits, of course, going into the cloud. A lot of people think it's primarily cost, and actually, if you look at the value lever, cost is actually probably number 2, and I would say number 3 or number 4 in my list. I think scalability, I think agility, I think elasticity, right? Those are the 3 things kind of come to mind. You obviously get cost savings as well, by virtue of going into the cloud. But I think that's the first thing I would say for companies wanting to think about, their cloud journey is why is it that you want to go into the cloud? Are you trying to innovate faster? Are you trying to reach a broader customer segment? Are you trying to be able to handle scale, right, as your business grows? So I think being able to zone in and define and have that kind of North Star, I think that's the beginning of the journey, because you have to have that kind of end in mind before you start. Because a lot of companies that I've seen and worked with in the past, they tend to kind of start the journey without thinking about the end in mind, and then there's a lot of chaos that happens in between.
If I can kind of jump in there and kind of segue off of that and kind of ask a question there, would you say that one of the benefits, especially for smaller companies, is a low barrier to entry, right? So you don't need to invest a lot, in order to kind of experiment and see whether it's the right solution for you. Personally, I thought that was like one of the positives, which allowed me to experiment with like a lot of different cloud platforms before committing on a specific cloud approach.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. The barrier to entry is definitely very quick, because like everything else, you're leveraging what the hyperscalers already have developed, right? So you're basically just pushing workloads into the cloud, configuring your cloud estate and things like that. But at the same time, you still have to be able to define your strategy, right? Because what ends up happening, and I had a customer who went into the cloud without kind of understanding how from a business perspective, what does that look like? From a security perspective, from a platform perspective, operations, right? People perspective, right? What does that look like? Those are all factors that actually, are important, right, as you move into your cloud journey. So yeah, barrier to entry is definitely easy, but there's still these things that you need to kind of think about, because remember, you're moving from a capital expense to an operational expense kind of mode, right? So you need to understand how that works when you move into the cloud. You could spin up an instance, in seconds, right? versus manually having to rack and stack in your traditional data center. But you have to be able to understand, well, if I'm not using those instances, right, I need to be able to turn them off, right? So yeah, you can get in quickly, but so can your operational expenses go through the roof, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
yep, sure.
Ish, you have anything you want to add? I was gonna just chip in a little bit there, but you can go ahead.
No, I think what I will add there is around the security angle. So people assume that because it's cloud, is somebody else's responsibility, but that's not the case. So depending on which services you're consuming, is it a PaaS or is it a IaaS, then you are responsible for obviously your data and protecting that throughout. So understanding that and understanding that, yes, it is the cloud, but you still have to do kind of like the basic controls, the network level controls, the firewall controls, the anti-malware, those kind of things. So it's not just because it's in the cloud. Yeah, you can go there, you can move at pace, but you must not underestimate the potential for somebody to compromise those devices and start running crypto miners and things like that, which can increase your cost base exponentially. So yeah, it's about understanding the whole perspective around the platform, the services, the workloads, the security aspects of it, and how to protect that at all costs.
Absolutely. It's not a sales pitch, but this is what we do as a company. This is the value that we add to cloud, because it is, like you said, a lot of people. We had a customer recently that said, "Oh, one of our customers got ransomware, and now they're asking us, do we have controls in place to protect our data? But we're using NetSuite, so I think we're fine. We're using Office 365, so I think we're fine. Our servers are in Azure, so I think we're fine." I was like, "Okay, why do you think you're fine?" "Well, because they're in the cloud." I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" And this is a lot of people just think because, you know, the servers are no longer in your closet or in your own data center or in your own facility that, you know, these other people are responsible for that. No, I mean, what they're responsible for is really, you know, the compute, the resources. But the essential things, you have to really add it to your strategy of, as Pierre said, you know, what is it that you want to get done there? And then I think people should also not look at it from a standpoint of short term. Create at least a 3 to 5 year strategy. That way you can actually look at the cost. What is it going to cost you now? What is it going to cost you 12 months from now? What could it cost you, you know? And this kind of helps you understand where your growth is going to be. Not only that, you can kind of also build a hybrid model. What are some of the processes that we can push to the cloud? And maybe what are some of the things that we can do locally? For example, you can do your development locally and not really leverage the cloud for that, because, you know, you can kind of use those resources, buy some servers and do that there. And then when you're ready, you push them to the cloud. So these are all things that I think organizations should think about. It does help you, you know, the cloud does help you, give you that flexibility. One of the things I love about it is you can cancel it anytime. It's month to month, typically, unless you're doing reserve instances where you can save some money there. But at the end of the day, if your business isn't working, you can shut it off and move on. I don't know who made the comment earlier about, you know, the barrier to entry was really, really low. So you can just get in and go. So it allows you not to have to make that investment of $500,000 or $1 million to buy all this infrastructure and build it out. You can just leverage what's there. But typically, if you do a 5-year strategy to really look at the cost, you'll tend to find that the cloud tends to be a little bit more expensive, but you don't have to hire the resources. Your total cost of ownership is a little bit lower. So these are all factors I believe that companies should really look at when they, you know, when they're going into the cloud. And, you know, that's why it helps to kind of leverage companies that specialize in those areas to be able to help guide you towards that. So that's all I have to add there.
Thank you all very much. Okay. What are some tips you can give to small businesses? So let's say I'm a startup, and, you know, I've heard about cloud, but I don't really know what it means. But someone has told me I should use cloud to help my business. What would you say to that person as a cloud expert? For someone starting out that's heard that cloud can help, but doesn't know where to start, how they can use it for their business.
I'll let, since I just spoke, I'll let Pierre maybe or Ish take a stab at that one.
Yeah. So again, the cloud is a great enabler of businesses to launch and grow at scale. It's absolutely great. So I think the first advice I would give such an individual is just to understand what it is that your business is about, where your customers are, and what sort of service level availability your service is going to be. Is it going to be 24/7? Do you need to have kind of like downtime? Do you need to have disaster recovery capabilities enabled? Kind of like those outlines clear initially. So again, it's different for different people, but I'm assuming here somebody that's wanting to go to cloud is already has a business and has dealt with some of the basic fundamentals like business continuity, resilience, and things like that. So you just understand that and have a clear path into, okay, we can enable these workloads in the cloud. It's easy with Azure. You can do calculations that can give you a view of what your current costs are and what your target cost is going to be. But once you've got a clear strategy and you know what you want, then it's easy to design and architect a solution that can fulfill those requirements and have in place scope for growth where you can plug things in, plug things out to be able to scale as the need comes. But then you just have to build the foundations with the growth mindset initially, I think.
Anyone else want to chip in?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I think a lot of times with startups, right, small businesses, capital is a problem, right? So I think, looking at options within the cloud makes a lot of sense. I think for most startups, there's an advantage in the sense that they can think cloud first, right? They don't need, like Malik said, you don't have to have that capital intensive type angle where you're pouring out all this money into, buying physical boxes and things like that. Within a matter of minutes, you can set up your estate. But I think at the end of the day, it's important to really understand your business, like Ish was mentioning. You have to be able to understand, what's your reach, right? So is it customer acquisition? Is that what you're going after? Are you trying to enter a new market, right? Are you trying to leverage it to open up a new channel? I give you a typical example. So Venmo, I know most people use Venmo. Venmo is a PayPal company. If you go on Venmo's app right now, there's a crypto feature, right there on the top. Within the app, being able to add such a service, right, rather quickly, from that standpoint in terms of their strategy was something that they saw, okay, this crypto business is a hot business. We want to be a key player, like the Coinbases of the world and things like that. We want to be able to offer that as a service to our customers. So why not open up a new channel, right? So in their mind, they're thinking the reason why we want to be able to leverage cloud services, right, is to be able to open up a new channel or be able to offer a product or service, right? So you have to be able to think in that kind of capacity, in that kind of way, if you're going to leverage some of these solutions.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. This is great.
If I can just kind of pitch in here, it's like kind of a question. It's a comment and a question. So I think, like, from experience, like I've experienced, well, I don't think it's a great idea to couple yourself too tightly to any one cloud service. It's more coming from a software perspective, but if you integrate too deeply and too integrally, it's hard to decouple. So, if you're integrated with a service that all of a sudden doesn't exist anymore, all of a sudden your application is in trouble. So what I found is like creating like a kind of like a software layer that actually integrates with the cloud platform. So you can change up your cloud platform without disrupting your core app too much. Like I'd be just interested to get people's input or experiences with that kind of point of view.
Yeah, maybe I can take a stab at that. So effectively what you need to develop is some sort of micro architecture where you can plug and play components without affecting the whole structure. So, and that is easy to do in the cloud. And the issue around being tied into one cloud, you can build your app or your service where you can port it from Azure to GCP to another platform, where obviously the tools, the native tools in the various platforms will be different. But then if you architect your solution in a way where you can plug in and plug out, then that should help you remove some of those limitations there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Malik.
Go ahead, Pierre.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, for a startup, I think it would be a little difficult to try to leverage multiple clouds to build your solution. I mean, if you think about, like, first, let's debunk the word cloud, right? Like, where did that come from? You know, cloud it just became a buzzword for marketing. But if you remember back in the day of networks, when you build a network or a network diagram, they will put like little clouds around it, showing that was the internet. Then after that, hosting companies became ASPs, application service providers. And then after that, then it became grid computing. Oh, grid computing is the next big thing. And then once the Azure's launched, once the AWS came out, then they started calling it, you know, everything changed, ASPs, grid computing, all of that changed to cloud. So, I mean, essentially it's the same. Now then you go to virtualization. Now you have containers. Now you have, you know, platforms like Kubernetes that allow you to move your stuff around. So I don't think it's that important today to say, oh, I don't want to risk building my application on AWS. If you use their underlying PaaS applications like the messaging services, the IoT edge platforms within Azure, then you're kind of getting married to that particular platform. But at the end of the day, as is said, you should be able to, you know, transport your application to different clouds without major issues at all. But I just think for a startup, trying to say I want to kind of mitigate my risk by creating something in AWS and in Azure, the learning curve is just too much, and if they don't have the resources to do it, you know, I was watching a YouTube video on top 50 services on AWS. I mean, 50 services for one company, maybe it's just to two of you to learn all of the services. It's just too resource intensive. So I think my advice is pick a cloud that you're comfortable with. Just build your application around it to where if you feel like you needed to move it back on-prem or move it to a hosted place at a cloud, private cloud, or to another cloud provider, you can easily do that. But trying to mitigate risk and use multiple clouds, I don't know. It's maybe for a big company they could do it, but for a small one getting started, I would kind of advise against that.
Well, I think it also comes with to your point, the size of the organization, and I think it also comes with maturity. I think that in terms of you know, startups or smaller companies, you know, I think you have to really understand who the players are, right? So if you look at the different hyperscalers, right, whether it's AWS, GCP, or Azure, I think it's be able to understand, you know, the services that they provide, right? Looking at your business and understanding, okay, based on my strategy and where I'm trying to go, what services per what hyperscaler would work for me, right? And then you can start there and grow. Over time, you more than likely will be in a hybrid situation. I mean, you work with banking clients, right? Because of regulatory reasons, right? Most banking or payment companies are bound by regulations, right? Whether it's FIPS 140 or what have you. So they can't move every workload into the cloud. Some have to stay on premise. So now you have this hybrid situation or multi-cloud situation. Every workload is also that suitable for one particular cloud. I'll give you a typical example. I was working for a retail client a couple of years ago, and they were using Azure. And at the time, they had sold the project, right? And the client was they had their requirements and they were looking to build. And what ended up happening is, you know, Microsoft said, oh yeah, we have this service. Come to find out that service was not GA'd, and GA, I mean general availability. So the service was not matured, right? So they couldn't use it, right? It was there, but they couldn't use it. So I think being able to understand what each hyperscaler has to offer, and then being able to tie that back to your use cases within your organization, because that's what's going to drive where you're going, right? You have to have these hyperscalers meet your requirements and then build from there. And then you can decide, okay, is this a multi-cloud situation? Is it a hybrid play? what have you, right?
Yeah, just to add to that, so obviously Microsoft Office 365, I think it's only available in Azure, right? So depending on that, you're kind of limited to where you can put your workloads in. But yeah, valid point.
Yeah, and I think the idea of microservices that you mentioned just a moment ago, for most companies, and this may or may not apply to smaller companies, but I'll just use big companies as a reference, right? I think for most companies, the idea of microservices is a game changer, right? Like Ish was mentioning, I think Malik alluded to this. You have to be able to build your application with that in mind. So gone are those days where you have monolithic applications where everything is packaged in one sense and then deployed. Because what happens when a disaster strikes, your whole application goes down, right? Now, when you introduce the idea of microservices, everything is decoupled, right? So you can actually have certain parts of the application be treated as their own certain entities, so that should, let's say, a degradation of service happens, right? You can isolate and treat that one particular component of the application by itself without having to bring the service down, right? And that's what allows for companies to continue to offer services and thrive, and the customer not knowing what's happening in the background. Some people on the call may or may not know this, but there are outages that happen on AWS or Azure or some of these big providers every single day. Every single day there's outages that happen, but we never see them. We never feel them. Why? Because of the way they architected the environment, So whether it's containerization, applying Kubernetes, what have you, right? So that's how most companies would like to operate, right? To the point where service can still flow, right? There'll be no disruption of service, but on the back end, the architecture is well built to where there's failover, right? And things like that. So,
yeah, I think these are some of the challenges. I'll just use Gambia, for example, where it's really challenging to build everything in the cloud, even though we try to push a lot of these customers to use the cloud. But if something like an incident happened where the entire country loses connectivity and your application highly depends on the cloud, and there's no replicas of those instances within the country, I mean, you're kind of doomed. I think the recent one was down for like 16 hours. I mean, 16 hours for an entire organization to just not be able to do anything, that is not good. So these are also strategies that, things that you should really think about if you kind of, in areas like Gambia where, you just can't kind of risk all of everything over on the cloud. I know we have some government customers there that are using Office 365. The good news is if there's some people send them emails, their emails won't be lost. They'll still kind of go into their inboxes, but those guys are not able to access anything. So, countries also should think about creating redundancy within their links. I think right now, Gambia, we only have the ACE. So if we're going to heavily invest in cloud environments, in putting workloads outside of the country, we need to also kind of look at, are there other paths that we should kind of put in place to be able to do that? And this is for the same people that are building applications for, to sell there, I don't want to spend $1 million building an application that's going to be hosted in the cloud. And then if, internet goes out and my revenue highly depends on that and they can get on, these are all problems that I think countries should really think about in, just making sure that people are able to, continue on business without interruptions heavily.
Yeah, indeed. I think, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to just add on just to say, I think he's spot on. I think that removing those single points of failures, it's beyond important, right? I think, unfortunately in Gambia, we have more infrastructure issues that need to be in place. Actually, some even non-infrastructure issues that need to be in place, that we need to, fix before we, we kind of benefit from all these things. But yeah, totally agree.
What I was going to add there was cloud is great, provided you've got strong pipelines to reach the cloud services, right? So situations like Gambia where electricity might be a problem, you need to run the services 24/7. internet and all those things. So I think the foundations need to be enabled first to create the environment for businesses to thrive and leverage the best of cloud. Without that underlying foundation, then it's kind of going to be challenging to provide good quality services from the cloud for places like the Gambia. And I'm not sure where the Gambia is in terms of data centers or things like that.
Yeah, there's none right now, but it is something being discussed. So hopefully, it'll happen soon. But I mean, even this challenge, like for example, I think on Friday we had an issue where customers from Baltimore could not reach any of our services in Raleigh in our data center because level 3 had a big issue. One of their fibers got cut and there was this major congestion. So regardless of how much redundancy, you should always make sure that you have enough redundancy in place to reach your services. But there are other underlying issues. Like Amazon is so big now, if they have a major issue, it affects pretty much everybody. Azure the same. Companies like SoftLayer has a problem, it's going to affect somebody. So, but these companies invest a lot in making sure that these things are kind of they resolve them fairly quickly. So these are things that we should also kind of think about as we're building applications, to really think about talking to the government officials, educating them on the importance of the infrastructure, how it needs to be. For example, if Gumtel, everybody goes home on Friday at 5 o'clock and something happens on Saturday, businesses have to wait till Monday for something to be fixed. And a lot of the ISPs in the country today operate this way. So these are conversations that we should be thinking about of, okay, if my business is going to run 24/7 and highly depend on connectivity to reach not only the cloud, but stuff locally, we kind of need to set that bar high for the local providers to also kind of, have that level of urgency so that we can reach our applications. So there's a lot of, I think, little things we need to do. I know we're talking about how the cloud can give you performance, but we also kind of need to, talk about the little things that could really, hinder you from getting the performance that you really need, that we need to kind of take up. But just little small tweaks here and there that typically we don't think about them, but it should be a conversation that should be discussed and highly considered because it is important.
Well, I think it's the classic people, process, technology conversation,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people focus so much on the, maybe the technology aspect, right? And I think when you embark on things like moving into the cloud and all these different things, I would say just as much as technology is important, I think the people and the process are probably way up there, because those are the things that actually would make you successful. There's a saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's actually true. You can be the most dynamic company and you can have all the tools in the world and you can put all your workloads in the cloud. If your organization's culture does not change and you don't have the right people, whether it's from a skilling perspective or capability perspective, your cloud journey would be very, very difficult. That's just point blank and simple. And leaders in organizations, I've had several of these conversations with them, and that's one of the things that they've struggled with, at least in the past, where the culture has to change, people have to change, right? Processes have to be in place in order to make sure that the cloud journey is seamless. So yeah, I totally agree. There are things outside of just moving into the cloud that needs to be taken care of. I mean, I look at even things like having good governance, right? How are you going to consume these services in the cloud, right? So there's actually a canvas that I actually like to speak to when I'm talking to clients, and it actually involves things like when services are being introduced into the company, right? How do you decide whether a particular service, because the hyperscalers are going to come, they're going to come at you, especially if you're using their product. They're going to sell you every new service that's going to come in that they push to market. So then the question becomes, who within your organization has that foresight to be able to say, yes, we need to implement SageMaker, or we need to look at Azure's AI and ML platform because we need analytics and we need machine learning, for example. who needs to have that foresight? It has to be someone who has the foresight from a technical perspective and a business perspective, to be able to say, yes, we have the people to be able to implement this, but also our business needs this because we want to provide X service or Y service, or we want to push, A product or B product, to the end user. So there are different things that actually, can come together to formulate what would be that perfect journey, or at least a seamless journey to move to the cloud.
Yeah, I totally recognize that because I spend the bulk of my time looking at tools and technology, guarding against, because what normally happens is business and people will just come, oh, we need this. But then you might already have a tool that can do what the other tool can do, maybe not to the same degree. But yeah, so having a strong governance to kind of be the gatekeeper, to look at what's coming through and why it's coming through, what are the benefits, what are the security implications of that particular tool, because you can move quickly into cloud without the right governance, and then you end up being a victim of cybercrime, and then that finishes your business altogether, because it's really hard to recover from some of these negative cyber impacts. So yeah, I totally can recognize that.
Yeah, it's actually for me one of the challenges that or one of my biggest fears in Africa, particularly in Gambia, where the government is being sold on cloud so much so that they don't have the right people to ask the right questions. For example, I'll give you an example of recently where an agency purchased a bunch of licenses of a particular platform. And when renewal came about, I was like, let's do an audit of this. You have all of these licenses, you spent X number of dollars last year. But when I'm looking at the audit, you're only using 25% of this high-end license, because the people that sold it to them, they made their commission from, the amount. I'm like, but they didn't have the right people on staff to really kind of look at these things. And my fear is there's so much money being spent on cloud services, or even just technology in general, without the proper people that can recognize these things and say, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Why is it that we're paying this? I mean, we ended up saving them almost $100,000 just from that renewal. But we could have just said, renew the same thing, and then we'll make the money off the 100,000. But it doesn't help me, and it's not useful to me. That's like, and I don't think the other company did it maliciously. They just don't know. So recently they were doing a survey of why the digital skills in the Gambia is lacking. So they invited me to take the interview with them, and my thought to them was, I think we need to look beyond. We need engineers. We need somebody with Cisco router skills. I'm like, you need people that kind of at the higher level, people that have that analytical skills, decision making, that people that understand change management. Because you can spend $5 million and you won't get nothing from it if you don't have the proper people in place to help with that change, to help understand what is it that we're trying to solve. So these are all things that to really get that performance of the cloud or hybrid cloud or whatever model you want, you have to have the proper people in place to assess, understand what the issues you're trying to solve. What are you trying? These are all things that are important, but I think it's highly ignored. It's highly ignored because they have people that are more on the technical side. They get excited because, oh, we get to touch these new tools and play around with it.
Yeah.
And they'll play with it for maybe a month and they get stuck. And guess what? The company just wasted money because they're not going to do the research necessary to actually get it to work. And this is the reason why I think transformation is very slow in countries like the Gambia and maybe some of the other in the region there. So doing proper research, those two P's, people, processes, is, I think, in my opinion, is more important than the actual technology. Because if you define that, it will help you define the technology that you need to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and the thing about the people aspect is, I mean, I'm a legacy engineer. I started with Cisco routers and things like that. The cloud, you need to have a different mindset. So what worked in the old world doesn't necessarily need to work in a new way. So you have to look at things differently. And there's a culture issue there where people are so tied to the old ways of working. They tend to bring that system to the cloud where you're not using the best of cloud. So the best of cloud is using things that are native, cloud native tools that can automate, that can integrate. You can do massive automations there. But then with the old mindset and the old thinking, you can go to the cloud, but you may not actually get the most benefit out of it. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, on the circling back on the topic of performance, right? So give you a case study here. Back in 2008, right? Netflix was in the business of selling CDs and DVDs, right? For rentals, and they experienced an outage, and for 3 days they couldn't dish out DVDs for 3 days. Customers were unhappy, performance suffered from a revenue standpoint, you know, from a an employee standpoint and all that, right? And I think that was the light bulb that turned on for them to say, hey, we need to think about what this new digital transformation needs to look like for us, right? So for the next 10 years, right, they kind of spent time looking at that journey. How do we leverage cloud services in the right way to improve performance, right? I mean, fast forward 10 years, we're all streaming Netflix services from the comfort of our couches, right? How is that possible? Cloud services, right? So being able to redesign your architecture, which I believe that's what they did in their case, to be able to push products faster, right? I mean, now you can see how content is being delivered. They have their own content delivery network services where, you know, I can sit in China or Gambia or Rome or wherever, and I can fire up Netflix and I can watch a show, right? Why is that happening? It's not because the original content of the video can be stored in, you know, Netflix's data center, or, you know, if they're hosted on Azure or AWS, it can be stored there. But the power of the cloud allows for these content delivery networks that are closer to the user, which they call edge locations, right? To where you can actually get content delivered to you fast. So if you think about most of these sites that we visit, right, and let's say there's links and images to documents and things like that that we retrieve from sites that we visit, every time you click a link and every time you hit a photo, right, from your famous website, you're not actually hitting that photo from where the company stored that data, right? You're probably getting it from a near edge location, right? That's being cached, because from a performance standpoint, it's easy for retrieval purposes, right? So can you imagine if every time you wanted to access a link or some kind of photo, and you always had to go back to where that source was, right? And think about the millions of people around the world that are actually going to that same link and clicking on that same photo. There'll be performance bottlenecks all over the place. So being able to cache content, right, in these edge locations, right, serves you know, the customer very well. What does that do? It improves the performance and delivery and speed of what it is that you're being, you know. So when I think of, you know, the journey that they took, you know, that light bulb for them was the beginning of this transformation, and kind of what Malik alluded to and Ish, which is, how do you set your organization up for success, right? Thinking about the people and processes and things like that that need to be in place. And for them to be able to push 130, you know, content to 130 million users, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. That's not going to happen from a traditional sense, right? Or traditional data center sense. So I think when you think of performance, you know, to me, that's a classic example.
Thank you. Sure is. Sure is.
So I've got a question for you, Serena. So with regards to the whole tech convo thing, how is this impacting Gambia or enriching Gambia?
How is this? You mean this platform?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the connection with trying to? Because I've always been looking for something like this to be a part of, to give something back to Gambia. So I'm just trying to understand a bit more about
yeah. Okay. So as we mentioned earlier, but I'll recap. You know, this platform here, one of the ways in which it enriches or helps anyway startups in Gambia is, one, it brings the startup founders or CEOs to a venue where they can meet potential mentors or potential collaborators or potential partners or even advisors for their businesses. So in terms of immediate impact, I would say first is networking. The secondary would be possible mentorship, because what happens sometimes in these talks is later on, your LinkedIn profile could be shared with the participants. Emails can be shared, and it's all, of course, with if you're willing to anyway. But most of the panelists end up sharing their LinkedIn's or emails, and then they could be contacted later. So I think the other benefit also is not just for businesses, but even in general, some of these topics need to be spoken about, because as it's not, like for instance, I would give Malik's company as an example. There was a lot of challenges that he went through when he tried to set up, cloud services in Gambia, because a lot of people, for instance, were afraid of it. We're thinking, oh, if we put our data in the cloud, oh, I don't know how safe that is. Lots of people can get to it. It's not like if I have it on my hard drive at home, I know where my data is. So why should I invest in cloud? How's that going to help me? Everything's going normally as it should be. We are doing everything we need to do. So why bother, right? And then another a classic example. Now with the theft in Gambia, I had one of the businesses I'm coaching is a tech business. He designed an educational application that would help parents communicate with schools. So you can keep track of your kids in school, their progress, their performance and such. And he got burglarized. So half of his code was on the cloud and half of his code was not on the cloud. So all the front end was not on the cloud. So he had to reprogram the whole front end. And that too, he lost about 6 months of work, overnight. And this thief probably doesn't even know the worth of what's on the computer. So that computer is going to get wiped. So data loss is one of the things that's one of the things people should worry about. But instead of worrying about data loss, a lot of companies that I've interacted with, they're worried about where the data is located. But if we understand cloud right now, all of us have data all over the place. We have Gmails, we have Yahoo, we have all these emails. Even government workers have, Yahoos and Gmails and such. You would think they'd have at Ministry of something, but no, they have Yahoos on their business cards. It'll say Ministry of whatever, but with a Yahoo. So I think the other impact of this conversation is to promote awareness in technology and how it can help not just public but private businesses and people starting out that don't really understand much of this business concepts, because there's a lot of entrepreneurship happening in Gambia currently due to the fact that there's a high rate of unemployment. So most of these youngsters, they'll either end up having to go into a life of crime or trying to go through the sea, the back way, or or if they're smart enough, they'll try to learn some skills through these technical centers and open a business. Because as we don't have that many universities. We have one university, and then now there's an American University, but still we don't have that many institutions that can accept lots of students. Then the second thing is the pass rate for the WIAC exams right now is horrible. The pass rate. We fail. I mean, I don't even want to say the numbers, but yeah, I mean, over half. I'll be nice and say over half. We know over 2/3 fail, but let me just be nice and say that. But this is currently what's happening. So we know that tech is one of the things that's very popular now for the youngsters. So we want to see more young people in tech. We want to see more women in tech, which is next week's topic. And of course, with the help of all of you great panelists that accept to come and talk, we'll try to bridge that. But we can take it further, you know, and you know, I want to make this every Saturday something new to talk about. And as I said, the impact that you or the reward that you receive from it would be based on, you know, what you were willing, the level of commitment or participation you're willing to take. Because if you're interested in learning more about the tech companies that are out there, the startups, you know, I can easily bridge you to tech companies, so you can meet if there's anything, anyone that you want to learn about or see what they offer, or even just check in every Saturday around this time, even for a few minutes. You know, you'll get to meet more and more and more people, and I think that essentially is why this platform was made. I mean, it's still a new platform. Don't get me wrong. So at this moment, we don't have any quantitative, you know, data to show in terms of impact, but I think it's more on return on expectations. So we're doing ROE right now, so everybody gets what they expect to get from it based on what they put in it. I hope that sort of kind of gives you a gist.
Yeah, no, it's good initiative, and I'll try my best to attend as much of this as possible. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I think CD says he's left. Thank you, CD. We appreciate you taking the time to join us as well. We didn't hear much from, you know, the participants, so if, you know, I'll welcome someone in the audience. I mean, CD is gone now, but if there's anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question, because we've hit the hour mark, so right now we're winding down. So if we don't get any, you know, questions from the audience, you know, we can allow everyone to go and watch, because England's game is in about an hour. So you got to get your snacks ready, you know, for the Euro. You've probably missed the first game, but that's okay. So I appreciate you sacrificing that, even though the Euro is on. I was tempted to have it on the side as well, but I've let it go, my itching. But English game, yeah, we're gonna watch that game. So if there are no questions from the audience, you know, we can just allow the panelists to, you know, get any topic off their mind that they have left over, and then we'll just allow the closing for everybody, you know, for them to give out their closings, and then we'll reconvene at another date if you know, on a different topic, because I would surely, you know, love to hear from everyone again. You know, next weekend we have a ladies topic, you know, diversity and inclusion, such an important topic, and not just for women, because even, I mean, as you know, now the world is becoming more inclusive. So in every organization, there are so many things on the agenda. It's not just about color, it's not just about race and ethnicity. It's sometimes about orientation, likes, you know. There's so many things that could divide us, but organizations are now saying, no, we don't want anything to divide us. So they're becoming more open to diversity and inclusion. But next weekend, we are specifically focusing on, you know, Gambian women in tech. You know, then the following weekend after that, we have fintech. So we'll be talking about especially payment systems, because I know right now one of the challenges in Gambia for tech businesses is how do you get, you know, a payment system, you know, included into your app? Like, how do you facilitate or even accept payments? Because, you know, it's quite funny, because some businesses are even doing payment on delivery, but pay on delivery, like the insurance consequences is so high. I mean, think about if you get to someone and they say, no, I don't want it anymore. So what happens? Like, I mean, but we'll be talking about all of these things coming up. And then we have business intelligence coming up, leadership. And if, as I said, I'm creating a list, an email list for the panelists. So if you see an email with possible topics and you want to sign up for, then you can feel free to sign up for a topic to come back and discuss, because I'm sure you might have so many different things you could have spoken about, and not just cloud. So, but I really thank you all for your participation. I'm going to give the audience maybe a question or two if they're up to it. If not, we'll just go ahead and close and go get the snacks ready for the England game. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Okay. Anyone in the audience want to say anything? Okay, so if that's the case, everybody's eager to go watch the game, so they're scared to say stuff. I guess Pierre wants to say something.
No, I was just gonna close out by saying, I mean, I think this is a great platform. Thank you for hosting, and thank you to the my fellow cloud enthusiasts for sharing. I think to take this to the next step. I think it will involve a lot of collaboration. The time is now, I don't know, you may not see the excitement in my face, but I'm fired up. The time is now. You hear what I'm saying? So I think now is the time that we need to collaborate more. We need to push the envelope. It is our job and it's our obligation to really, really set the stage, not just where we live, but also for our country. There's a lot of things happening. And I think if we don't take center stage, I think we'll look back and we'll be like, wow, I've wasted a good chunk of my time in life. So I want to urge everyone to kind of, as a takeaway, let's collaborate. Let's bring thoughts and minds together. Let's push the envelope, right? And I think great things will happen, regardless of where we are. So I just wanted to close by saying that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. Like I said earlier, I was looking for something like this to kind of give back to Gambia, and I think I would happily be involved and take questions, help where I can, and be part of the debate or the discussions to help the Gambia move forward with technology, because we all know that it's the future. Everything we consume in the West has got something to do with technology, and it's going to go into Africa. It is already in Africa, but it's about helping and bringing our knowledge back to the homeland to help nurture and grow and encourage and be that mentor for the people. So yeah, I'm happy to be called upon and to engage and continue the collaboration. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry guys, I have a question. Can I?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Marcia. It's Malik. I guess I can direct this question to you because, as you said, you currently have a company in the Gambia running cloud services. Yeah. So how do you convince your client to take up cloud with regards to the security aspect, as this guy was saying? Most of the people are concerned with regards to the fact that, where is our data safe? So how do you convince them? Cloud services in the Gambia?
Well, I mean, we try not to convince, we try to educate. I think if somebody has a knowledge of, what it is that they're questioning, then they can make the decision that they make. So, we usually start by asking, where's your data now? And then understanding how safe is it there? And most of the time, the cloud, putting it in the cloud is much safer than where they have it. As Sidin talked about earlier, these guys are using Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo's, and things like that. Yes, those are platforms in the cloud, but they're public platforms. And those are the most highly hacked environments. At least in the cloud is controlled, and so we kind of do more of an education around it, so they can better understand where that data sit, how they can put in additional security as well. Because it's not something that, yes, it is out there on the internet, but it's not like it's just available for everybody. But it is also not, automatically secured. So you have to put in, the proper controls in place, the proper things like that in place. So it's more of an education. And then I think once people are educated on the platform, they're now, I don't know if Menga's on the call, but Menga used to work for us. And, a lot of people tell me, man, why do you hate Gambia so much? I mean, Sidin probably knows that. When I have to go to Gambia, I dread it. I dread going to that place. But then my kids will ask, if you hate it so much, why you keep investing in the place? Because I have like 3 new startups that I'm working on for Gambia. But it's like one of those things you like, it's not, I don't hate, I just hate where they are because it is a place I believe in so much that they can do better. It's like, you just say, this will never work here. But then you have that sense that it can work here. Ish, you were asking, you were looking for something like this to invest in. So one of the things I didn't mention during my introduction, PointClick Technologies started Innovate Gambia, or we fund a project for Innovate Gambia. And within that, we had 4 initiatives, but 2 of them was to build the first innovation hub in the Gambia, which is called the Disruptive Lab. So that's been running now for almost 2 years. It's 100% funded by us. It's expensive to run, but we continue to do it just because we have that belief in where we're going with it. We also run an annual program called Who is Who in Tech, because I think one of the issues that we have as Gambians is a lot of us are out there doing things for the world, right? For some of these other countries, but not for our own country. But it's not because you don't want to, it's just because you don't know where to start. So we just had our second one where, I told sitting the other day, I was like, this is such a good platform because it's giving us the people. I'm getting to learn more about, people like you. I didn't know you from today. So when we have the next Who is Who in Tech, we want to sell Gambia that we shouldn't be behind on technology because we have people like Pierre, we have people like Ish. We have such highly educated people in technology helping big companies that are far bigger than the country of the Gambia move forward. Why can't we not kind of bring those resources together and be able to help our nation? And we're not saying you're going to come to Gambia and make the same money that you're making there, but from my observation, a lot of Gambians like you that are successful already, you're willing to lend a hand. So right now we're just trying to build a network of resources, educate people on what are some of the things that are happening in the world of tech by having conversations like this. So this is highly encouraged. We really appreciate your time doing it, but also spread the wealth out there with others. I think our country needs us. It is frustrating to deal with, but it requires a lot of patience. A lot of the stuff I talked about is by experience. So it's
which I don't have much of.
but that's why we want to share these things, because I went into Gambia, I was gone for almost 30 years, but I had a lot of assumptions going into the country. Oh, we're going to be able to do this. We're going to be able to do that. Excited. And as soon as you get there, man, they'll beat you up you'll come out looking like a Swiss cheese, man, with all these holes in you. But, I'm still excited about the country. I still think there's a lot to be done there. And it starts with conversations like this. So, I think Pierre, we talked quite a bit on some of the things that we want to do together. And we're just trying to bring in as much as people as possible. That way we can help our country get out of the rut that they're in.
No, it did, and I think it was Mas that asked that question, right? I think when I think of the possibilities in Gambia, cloud included, let's park cloud aside, right? I think there's a lot of education. I think like Malik and Ish were saying, a lot of knowledge that has to happen, right? So I think it's about really helping to change the mindset. There has to be a mindset shift, right? Because without that mindset shift, you can't have a conversation. And these conversations happen because people are willing and able to listen and be able to have open dialogue and really be able to understand where they truly are, right? So I think that's the first step, right? Because the other side can take care of itself. I mean, I say that's the easy part, to be honest. The technology part is the easy part. The people and the culture part, that's the tough part, So I think the more we collaborate, I think the more we push forward. I look at Gambia like greenfield. It's greenfield. We can do whatever we want, for that country.
Maybe.
So.
All right.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank you all. I want to just read Marcel's comment. He said, "Thanks for being here. Was good learning your opinions on the topic. See you in the next one." Thank you, Marcel. Yeah.
Hey, sharing. I think we should also thank the participants and the guests that joined. I think we should also give them
Absolutely.
kudos because it's a
Absolutely.
Saturday. They could have done other things, but they
could've
chose
watched the game.
to spend time. They could watch the game, but they chose to spend time with us. So I think I should say kudos to everyone that joined. Really appreciate it, and thanks for the support.
Yeah, I have to stay up. It's 3 a.m. here around, yeah, in Seoul. I'm in Korea currently, so
Whoa, whoa,
Oh, really?
wow.
whoa.
thanks.
Mas,
Cool.
thank you. Thank you.
Right.
So yeah, so I guess, did anyone want to close or should I go ahead and close?
It's your show, man. Close it.
It's our show. It's everybody's show. Yeah, thank you all for joining us. Really, so really appreciate everybody's support. And as I said, if anyone's interested in being a panelist, reach out to me on through LinkedIn. I'll share my email in the chat box so you can see it. So you can reach me at my email, the Innovate Gambia email, I think. So that would be. So please reach out if you're interested in being a panelist. And as I said, I've created a panelist email list. So I'll be sending out topics, and then everyone will have a chance to pick. Normally for panelists, we want to keep the numbers small. So I think 3, maximum 4 panelists per topic. Otherwise, it could get really crowded. So we want to give a chance also. And remember, just because you're not a panelist on one of the topics, you could still give a lot of input. And one of the reasons I set this up as a meeting instead of a webinar, I wanted to give the participants a chance in case someone wanted to turn on their camera and actually speak. So I didn't want to close it out by just saying the panelists have the right to put on their camera or not. So anyone could turn on their camera. Anyone could give feedback that they want, just in case someone wants to show face. Because sometimes you might see someone behind the camera and say, "Hey, I've not seen you in a while," or "I've seen you in a while." So you can reconnect with certain people. I know that happened in one of the sessions. Some people that didn't want to be found were found. But they were like, "You've been hiding. Where? Like, I need to talk." Okay, so yeah, so you never know what can happen. But yeah, we'll keep it this way. And I got all these cloud specialists, so at my back. So if I'm doing anything that's not secure, I'm sure they'll help support me.
Yeah, I will apologize. When you reached that, being a cybersecurity, I was like, who is he? Is he trying to hack me or something? What are all these images he's sending me? So I didn't click on any of them. But now I know who you are. So
Yeah, I was sending each like the flyers for the next event just so he could get an idea. Yeah, that was all part of the sell. So glad to have you on board, though.
I'm
Yeah,
super
but don't worry,
paranoid about
I
security
would
things.
never spam anyone. I mean,
No,
knowingly.
but you know what I mean, though, because obviously I didn't know you before, and then all of
Yeah,
a sudden
definitely.
somebody popped and then sending me images. I'm like, this is how it starts.
You won $1 million.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Give me your bank details so I can transfer it.
Yeah, so for me, when I receive any images, images, videos, anything like that, I never click on it.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, well, thank you all for coming. We want to thank
Thank you.
ITC and ITAG as well. If there's anyone coming here from ITC or ITAG, so we appreciate that and hope to see you on the next one. With some lovely panelists as well. So if you still, you're free, you have a minute, pop by, and we'll see you next time. We'll share the recording through email, so be on the lookout.
All right.
All righty,
All right,
thank you.
guys.
All right, thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
thanks.
Later.
Enjoy the game.
Bye.
Oh, one more. Someone's typing.
Oh,
I think that's probably Menge.
Okay.
Yeah, from ITAG and ITC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, could have. I'll wait on that. He's just like, I'm gonna wait. Sorry. I know you want to see the game. Okay, they canceled. They changed their mind.
Yeah.
But
it's okay.
Mandy, I see you. Thank you. All righty.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks for
Bye.
coming.
Bye.
See you all. Bye-bye. Bye.